So we're here in Milan with Nicole Stott, astronaut, 2 times space shuttle and 2 times ISS. Very impressive.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, well, we had a good KLM flight, so stick to that. I saw some interviews with you, and I think a video interview with you with NASA, STS-133, I think, interview. And there you told that the place where you were born and the fact that flying is in your blood, basically, because of your father. And then you did the right studies, you ended up at NASA. It all sounded it was all meant to be, or it came all together, but it can't be that easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anything is ever, regardless of what you're doing, I don't think it's ever as easy as it may end up looking afterwards. Yeah, I feel like, I think it all starts out with inspiration in some way. And for me, I had parents that shared what they loved with me. My mom, very creative person, where I think I kind of got the artsy stuff from. And I would say my dad had a lot of that creative talent too, and building and flying small airplanes. And yeah, from as early as I can remember, we were hanging out at the airport flying or watching him build an airplane and helping build airplanes. And yeah, I think it either gets in your blood or it doesn't. My 2 younger sisters, they fly to get from A to B. One of them, I think you have to medicate to get from A to B. And for me, it was just, wow, this amazement with the fact that things can fly. And so wanting to know how they do. And I think if you want to know how an airplane flies, why would you not want to know how a rocket ship flies?
Exactly. So that was the next step, basically.
Yeah, and growing up in Florida, the space program was around me. And having a dad and, parents who enjoyed flying, they would make sure we knew that was going on. And from like the earliest days with watching the moon landings, and then as the shuttle program, came to life.
So your parents also showed interest in that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have vivid memory of watching the, Neil and Buzz walking on the moon and sitting there with a grilled cheese sandwich, and then going outside and looking at the moon and thinking about people there. And I was only 6, but I think that. I don't care how old you are. I think that has an effect on you in some way. And
is that the fact that you lined up for the space shuttle missions, basically, or trained for space shuttle missions, but you grew up with Apollo missions. And if you were there like late 80s, early 90s, was the atmosphere still there of that Apollo era?
Oh, I don't think it's ever left. And especially when you're at the Kennedy Space Center, it's kind of like going to Russia to Star City. There's everywhere you look, there's still Gagarin, because that's where it started. And at Kennedy, the place where, humans launch to go to space, the sense of Apollo is it surrounds you. The launch pads have been, re-outfitted over and over again. Like now we've changed one to go from launching shuttles to launching Falcon rockets, and you've got the launch pads on the Cape side that just historically are maintained so that we remember that history of how we got to space. And everywhere you look, there's some reminder of that, not to mention the people. I mean, the people that work in the space industry, most of them do it because it's a passion thing. The people at Kennedy Space Center, they believe that the care and feeding of those spacecraft are their responsibility. And it's one of the things that made it so much fun to be there. And then to feel okay launching on them afterwards. It's like, I know these people care about this.
And can you tell us something about the first space shuttle launch? How that was, how that felt?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, there's, I think, so much about just the experience, like the training leading up to the actual launch and flying in space and the work we do and coming home. Awesome is a completely appropriate word to use. I mean, I know we use that in the lingo regularly for so many things, but it is a totally appropriate word. And I had the opportunity to watch a lot of launches before doing my first, working at Kennedy. You saw space shuttle launches, and I think in my mind I had this idea of what it would be like, but nothing prepares you for what it's like. And as a shuttle crew, you would get out there a couple hours before launch and get all strapped in, and what was fun for me was these were guys I had worked with already for 10 years at the Kennedy Space Center before, and to have that kind of camaraderie in the suit-up room and then going out to the pad. And you're in the ship for a couple hours before, so everybody naps at one point or another along the way. You just get relaxed and chill out. And then the crew gets involved with launch at about the 20-minute point. And up to then, you're not really doing a whole lot. Yeah. And you're monitoring stuff. And then it's not until that 10-9-8, kind of the classic 10-9-8 point that you even think that it's going to happen. It's just so surreal that you're sitting in that chair, you're strapped in looking up, but you just don't believe that this could be real. And for the space shuttle, at 6 seconds is when all that fuel would start flowing from that big orange tank down to the 3 little engines. And I always thought that would be really rumbly, really kind of a violent, feeling, but it wasn't. It was kind of like a slow, low rumble, and you could kind of hear it. But the cool thing about it was, because of the way the engines are angled, the thing would light and then the whole stack would tip, and then perfectly timed at 0 would come straight vertical again, and then that's when those solid rocket boosters lit. And that's when you're like, holy moly, was I ever on a launch pad? Because literally you got this reality check of, oh, that must be what 7 million pounds of like rocket thrust behind you feels like, because you get slapped from behind, and feels like 3 of you are sitting on top of you and you are shaking like you just can't imagine shaking. And the cockpit video does not show what it felt like. I mean, it was like jello inside. And you do talk about doing loops in airplanes where you feel like there's this weight on you, and there's like 3 of you sitting on top of you, and I don't know, I like ramble on about it because it's so incredible. And then at 2 minutes those things separate, big boom and flash, and at 8 minutes the solid or the tank separates, big boom and flash, and then it goes from this dynamic to just the most peaceful, like relaxing. If you relax, your arms just kind of float up in this weird, my son calls it like the space zombie position, like your arms just float in this like neutral position, and the pencil's floating on the end of the string, and you just cannot wait to get out of the seat and see what it's going to be like.
There's nothing like it.
There is nothing like it. And then, if you're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do it again, which I feel blessed to have had that opportunity, then you go out there thinking, oh, okay, been here, done this. And it's like, it's the wake-up call all over again. It's just equally as impressive.
So I know you're well trained, and it's a lot of training and simulating, I guess. So you are prepared, but was there a scary part? And what scared you most?
I think there's this anxiousness about it. You've trained so long, and probably 99.999 whatever % of that training involves in some way something going wrong, and how are you going to deal with it? So I think it's more of not really a fear thing. I think it's a respect, for sure. Like, there is respect of the risk associated with solid rocket fuel and explosive stuff going on below you. There's respect for, every aspect of how this thing functions. The level of complexity in these machines to make this happen, it's overwhelming. It's almost unbelievable that it could work. And so there's that anxiousness and respect for what it'll feel like. But for me, I think the fear was more about the people watching me do it. So it sounds a little weird, but so my son was 7 when I flew the first time. So my husband and son, I know, are watching me. My mom and my sisters are watching me. My friends are watching me. And I can tell you, it is a lot more difficult to watch somebody strap in to a rocket to go to space than it is to be the person doing it. So my fear was for them, how they were feeling as they watched me do this. And then in space, the fear was about something happening to them on the ground, and I couldn't get there.
In time.
I mean, it's weird, because you think about it, we're in this spaceship that's like, that thin aluminum is what's keeping you from that deadly vacuum of space. But what you're afraid of comes more down to the human side of things, I think. Then
you did EVA.
I did. Yeah.
I would be scared. What if the line breaks?
Yeah. They're pretty good lines, actually, and
Okay.
you've always got this
You
backup.
tested them before?
Yeah, we check them all out and stuff. And there is a very deliberate diligence about a spacewalk.
Yeah.
And all of flying in space is surreal. I mean, that awesome and surreal are the two words that always come to mind for me. But then when you go out in your own little spaceship, I mean, really, everything you need to survive is in this spacesuit. You know, your communication with your crew and the team on the ground is through this spacesuit. The view you have of everything around you is through this tiny, what looks like a big visor, but it's really kind of this tiny little visor to see. And again, I think it's a respect. It's taking all this training that you've done and really putting it into action.
Yeah.
And when you get to a spot, you put the hook on because you don't want to. I mean, you don't want to be the one that's floating away from the station. You know, you want the use of that little jetpack thing you have to have just been in the simulator. That's not something you want to do for real.
No.
So, yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, I remember this contrast between feeling like I was the most separated from everybody that I'd ever been before, but I also felt the most connected.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And then also it seemed like it went by super fast. Like 6.5 hours just was like I had gone out the hatch and now I'm coming back in. And then at the same time it felt like it just was in slow motion.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just this distilling of time almost that was strange. Yeah.
Do you have talking about time? Do you have a sense of time when you are there? You do your tasks and events, I guess, which you in the logbook that you it's really timed, I guess.
It is very timed. So every day has a similar structure to it. And you know, you'll wake up at this time, lunch is at this time, dinner, kind of the milestones of the day. But there's no like kind of natural 24-hour day-night cycle. It's you're getting kind of 16 day-night cycles throughout that 24-hour day. So we work really closely with the watch you have on your wrist and with the computer that's telling you kind of this 5-minute by 5-minute breakdown of what your day is. And we joked at one point that on the schedule on the computer they have this red line that says you need to be done with this by this red line. I mean, it's like you were chasing the red line all day long. And so keeping
you have
yourself.
different types of time, you could say. One for events on board and one that's connecting you with home, perhaps.
Yeah, and we worked to GMT, so you had to kind of think. I always thought about, okay, I'm in London all the time, and I have to think about how I'm going to talk to my family in Florida. Yeah.
Okay, and so afterwards, after you land with the space shuttle, that must be quite special as well, because you land as
humans should land. Yes, that little chirp on the runway is that's a nice way to land. Yeah.
I don't know if it's perhaps a dumb question, but do you have jet lag?
You know, I don't remember feeling jet lag because I think your body is a little bit overwhelmed with gravity and just this idea that, oh my gosh, an hour ago I was in space and now I'm back on Earth. So I think the feeling, kind of the jet laggy side of it, which was there, is a little bit overwhelmed by those other things.
Tomorrow we do more questions and there's a panel talk, so we have more questions about space, but also about watches.
Good.
But do you have anything with watches except for the watch that you wore during your mission and perhaps you have a special relationship with? Or
well, I'll tell you, the watch that I wore in space, which I'll share with you, when I took it up on my first flight.
It's a digital one?
It is. It's like the digital, the Speedy Master. Yes. And I got that watch for my son. You know, I got it as, you know, and I was going to fly in space with it. And no one told me that I needed to actually have it on me to have it for the mission.
Okay.
So it was packed away, special for him, during the first mission. So which I said, okay, for the second mission, that's not happening. I had it on my arm for launch. I had it on my arm throughout the entire flight. And it was incredible just how important that was. And that watch now it comes out to get its little service and then it goes back because I don't trust him to have it yet.
How old is he now?
But that's me. He's 16.
Okay.
So soon,
a few more years.
maybe when he graduates from high school, you know. But that to me, I think, is the most special watch because I think there was real purpose in having it, not just for me in space, but for him to have as this memory of that whole experience because he was right there with me the whole time preparing to do this, you know, as a little kid. So.
Sometimes I look at the NASA archives on the internet. They have a beautiful image library with pictures of people on board, of astronauts, and what I noticed is some astronauts they wear 2 watches inside the space shuttle. Why is that?
Well, there's different activities that go on that you need to time differently, and I think some of us are not, or some of the people that fly. It's in how quickly you have to manage those things. One watch sometimes doesn't give you the time to reconfigure it to do that. I think one of the nice things about the Speedmasters, the digital one, was that you could separately manage the two dials on it, which allowed you to do 2 separate things. And it was really cool because you could set it for like mission elapsed time too. And then at the start of the mission you could start it and then you could end it so it held that duration afterwards. And but people will wear, there's also, it wasn't really a watch, there was this, it was called the Acti watch, and it was kind of a little square thing that looks like a watch. I even had that on, and it's measuring more the motion of your body, and it's supposed to be gauging if you're sleeping well,
like a smartwatch
kind of thing like that. So that might be something that you've seen, but people do wear too, and I think that some of it might be too that they want, you know, they want to be able to give one watch to their husband, one to their kid or something.
Exactly. Exactly. I know the son of an astronaut who had 3.
Oh well, there you go.
From
bonus.
The brother, sister, and so on. And during your EVA, officially Omega Speedmaster is still being used for EVA, and it's NASA qualified for EVA. Did you wear one during the EVA?
I didn't, because my EVA was during my first mission where the watch was packed away.
Tucked away.
Sadly. So I didn't wear a watch at all on that. And
you didn't need one during your spacewalk?
I technically didn't need one because you know, all of the timing is being managed from inside and from the folks on the ground. And so, you know, technically you don't really need to have one. But I think there's, I don't know, if I ever got to do it again,
you would.
I would, because I think there's something to connecting the experience of time with the watch physically there with you when you're doing something that's so different than you usually get to do.
Okay. And can you tell us something about the watch you're wearing today?
The watch I'm wearing. I love this watch.
You just got it?
I just got this watch a little while ago. It's beautiful. And I don't know if you see me, I mean, look at me. I'm not like, fashion and glamour are not really me.
Well,
so there's this, but I will tell you that what I like in jewelry and in any watch I wear is kind of a simple elegance. You know, I want it to be really beautiful, but I want to be able to wear it. Like what I have on my hands, I can wear in the garden, or I can wear to a gala.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what I love about this watch, is that mechanically and as a timepiece, it has every function you would want in a watch. But there is just, I mean, you look at it, it's like a delicate, I don't know, there's just an elegance to it that I think is, you know, both simple and timeless too. You know, this is a watch I think I could wear for the rest of my life as well, and feel like I could go to you know, to the party, and then I can be out of my yard, though protecting it a little bit more than I would something else. But yeah, I like that I can wear it all the time.
You have the X33 still for your son. Do you have other watches in your collection that you cherish or have special meaning to you?
I have this one, and then I have one of the Planet Ocean Seamasters that
because of your
the diving
adventure.
And I'll tell you, when I think about like my life and experience, up till now, and then what I see for myself in the future, it is always going to bring the sea and space together. And there's this idea of seeing the Earth from space, this like overview effect idea, seeing the Earth as one planet in space, that we live on a planet, we're all Earthlings, and this kind of macro view of our home in space. And so outer space. And then we kind of joke that we go and we train and we live and work in inner space to learn how to work in outer space. But by going and doing that, it's like you're immersed in the planet, and it surrounds you. And the perspectives that you get from those two places, I think about where we live, and who we share the planet with. I don't. That's just in me now, and so I love the idea of the planet-ocean line, because to me, it's like Omega has found a way to tie those two things together. And not just through a timepiece, but through the work that they're doing in parallel with that, that's conservation related and is really making people aware of, this place that supports our life. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.